Ethan Cole never thought he'd be the type of guy to end up pouring his heart out like this, but sometimes life takes turns you can't anticipate. He wasn't dramatic, not a fan of long speeches or theatrical gestures. He liked things simple, steady, predictable. That's why when Lydia Hart, his girlfriend of 3 years, sat across from him one Tuesday evening, her face unusually pale, her eyes darting away, and said, "I think I need a break to figure myself out," it was like someone had yanked the rug out from under him. At first, he thought he had misheard. A break? The words hung in the air like smoke from a blown-out candle, and Ethan sat frozen, trying to understand what had just happened. Lydia's voice trembled as she explained herself, rehearsed phrases spilling out like lines from a script. "It's not you, it's me. I feel like I've lost a part of myself. I just need space, no contact for a while." Ethan's mouth had gone dry. 3 years. 3 years of late-night conversations, of building a life together, of Sunday mornings tangled in sheets, of shared routines and plans. And she wanted space? No contact? To find herself. He had wanted to argue, to demand answers, to ask how exactly you lose yourself in the middle of a committed relationship, but instead, he just nodded. Because when someone tells you they need space, when they beg you not to contact them, you respect it. So he did. Lydia had packed a small bag that night. "Just the essentials," she said. She claimed she'd be staying with her sister, Isla, while she figured things out. There had been an awkward hug at the door, and then she was gone. Ethan stood in the apartment they had shared for nearly 2 years, listening to the sound of her footsteps fade down the hall. The silence that followed was brutal. The first week was hell. Ethan found himself replaying everything in his mind, wondering where he had gone wrong, searching for clues in every past conversation. He scrolled through old photos of the two of them, remembered how Lydia used to laugh so hard her nose crinkled, remembered the way she'd rest her head on his chest when they watched movies. The absence of all of that was like a hole in his chest. He respected her request, though. No calls, no texts, no emails. He wanted to believe she was genuinely doing some soul-searching. He told himself she'd be back, that this was just a phase. 10 days later, his resolve cracked, not because he reached out, but because of what he saw. He had been scrolling through Instagram late one night when a familiar name popped up, Marianne Hart, Lydia's mother. She had posted a series of cheerful family vacation photos. The first picture was innocuous enough, Marianne smiling broadly with Lydia's father and Isla at a sunlit beach. But the second photo, Ethan's stomach dropped. Lydia was there, grinning, arm wrapped tightly around a man Ethan instantly recognized. Caleb Stone, her high school boyfriend. The one she had brushed off years ago as a silly teenage thing, nothing serious. The third photo was worse. A group dinner. Lydia leaning into Caleb, practically in his lap, laughing as though the world had never been brighter. Marianne had even tagged him in the picture, as if proudly announcing her daughter's reunion with an old flame. Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, his hands trembling. So this was Lydia's journey of self-discovery? A beach getaway with her ex, orchestrated, or at least encouraged, by her mother? He felt the betrayal hit him like a tidal wave. Not just betrayal, but the sheer audacity. She couldn't even give him the courtesy of a clean break. Instead, she had spun a story about needing space while she tested the waters with someone else. But Ethan didn't rage. He didn't call her to scream. He didn't flood her inbox with angry messages. Instead, he did something far worse. He got quiet, methodical, cold. He spent the next 3 days carefully packing every single one of Lydia's belongings. The closet, the dresser, the bathroom shelves, even the ridiculous collection of art supplies and trinkets she had scattered across their apartment. He treated it like a project, labeling each box, taking photos of the contents, wrapping fragile items in layers of bubble wrap. He made a meticulous inventory list, documenting every item. When he was done, there were a dozen large boxes stacked neatly by the door. He arranged for a courier service to ship them all, insured, tracked, to Marianne and Lydia's family home. It cost him nearly $300, but it was worth every penny. The day the tracking confirmed delivery, Ethan logged into Facebook and changed his relationship status to single. Then he blocked Lydia, blocked Marianne, blocked Caleb, deleted Lydia's number, deleted their photos from his phone. Though he kept a few on a secure drive, locked away, not because he wanted to revisit them, but because some part of him needed the evidence of what had been. And then he moved on. Or at least tried to. He hit the gym, met up with friends he hadn't seen in months, poured himself into work. For 3 weeks, the silence was blissful. The ache was still there, but dulled. He told himself he was healing, until his phone buzzed late one night. An unknown number. He answered, half expecting it to be a wrong number. Ethan? The voice was tentative, familiar. It was Lydia. For a moment, all he could hear was his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He said nothing, waiting. I think I'm ready to talk now, she said, her tone almost apologetic. I've done a lot of thinking. I'm ready to figure things out with us. There was a long pause. Ethan let the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. Then he said, voice calm even. Lydia, there is no us to figure out. Her sharp intake of breath crackled through the line. What? Ethan, what are you talking about? I said I needed a break, not a breakup. You said no contact, Ethan replied evenly. You said you needed space to find yourself. I respected that. And I figured some things out too. What did you figure out? She asked, a nervous laugh bubbling out. That you can't live without me? No, Ethan said. That I don't want to be with someone who lies to go on vacation with their ex while pretending it's about self-discovery. The line went quiet. Then a whisper. How did you know about that? Your mother tagged Caleb in the photos, Ethan said flatly. Publicly. Oh my God. Lydia's voice cracked. That was... Mom can be clueless with social media sometimes. Clueless. Ethan let out a short, humorless laugh. No. Complicit. Whether clueless or complicit, doesn't matter. The truth is clear. You didn't want space. You wanted options. You wanted to keep me on the back burner while you tested things with Caleb. That's not fair, Lydia protested. It wasn't like that. Caleb was just there. It just happened. Things don't just happen, Ethan snapped, the calm in his tone finally giving way to steel. You made choices. You chose to lie. You chose to go. You chose to get cozy with him. I was confused, she insisted, her voice turning whiny. This was part of my journey. I needed to figure out what I wanted. And I respected your journey, Ethan said, his tone suddenly cold again. So much, so that I facilitated its next stage. What does that even mean? It means all of your belongings were shipped to your parents' house 3 weeks ago. Your dad signed for them. They're all there. Every last thing. Packed, photographed, documented. Even your grandmother's earrings. Box number 7. Bubble wrapped. The silence on the other end was absolute. Then, barely audible. You did what? I packed your things, Ethan repeated calmly. Everything. Because you were on a journey, remember? Didn't want you to be burdened by attachments to your old life or to me. Lydia's voice rose in pitch, frantic now. My art supplies, my clothes, my jewelry. You can't just do that. I can, Ethan said. And I did. Lydia's silence on the phone stretched so long that Ethan could almost hear the gears turning in her head. Then her voice came back, trembling, tinged with outrage. You're insane. Vindictive. I was coming back, Ethan. We were going to work through this. You had no right to. We. Ethan cut in smoothly. There's no we. There hasn't been since you decided to take Caleb on your family vacation. You made that choice. I just responded to it. I didn't decide anything. Lydia's voice cracked with desperation. I was confused. Caleb was just there. My family thought it would be good for me, Mom thought. Your mother thought. Ethan interrupted again, voice sharp now. So, your mother orchestrated this? That makes it better? That you lied to me because your mom thought playing house with Caleb was good for you? Don't talk about my mom like that, Lydia hissed, but the words lacked conviction. I don't need to talk about her, Ethan said calmly. Her Instagram already spoke volumes. She's the one who told the world where you were and who you were with. Not me. There was a sudden shuffle on the other end of the line. Then another voice chimed in, firm, older, carrying a condescending edge that made Ethan's jaw tighten. "This is Marianne," the woman said. "What in God's name do you think you're doing to my daughter?" Ethan's lips curled into a bitter smile. He almost expected this. Of course Marianne would swoop in, trying to control the narrative. "Marianne," he said evenly, "with all due respect, this is between Lydia and me. Or rather it's concluded now. You can't just throw her things out like she's garbage." Marianne's voice grew shrill. "She's devastated. That trip was a misunderstanding. Caleb is just a family friend." Ethan almost laughed, but he held it back. "A family friend? She was sitting on his lap in your photos. The ones you proudly posted, Marianne. Do you want me to forward them to you, so you can refresh your memory? How dare you twist things?" Marianne snapped. Lydia was vulnerable. She needed comfort. That's all Caleb was, comfort. She told you she needed space, and if she found herself in his arms, that was her prerogative. "And it was my prerogative to end a relationship," Ethan said calmly. "Which I did." There was a muffled sob from Lydia. "Mom, he sent all my designer bags, my jewelry, everything. What if the courier lost them? What if something broke?" Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. The entitlement was staggering. "I packed your things more carefully than you ever did, Lydia. Bubble wrap. Double boxing. Everything insured. If something broke, you can take it up with the courier service. But as far as I know, your dad signed for everything. You can check the inventory lists. I have copies." "You're such a bastard," Lydia spat suddenly, the grief in her tone transforming into venom. "After everything I gave you, 3 years of my life." "And I gave you 3 years of mine," Ethan said coldly. "Difference is, I didn't end it by sneaking around with an ex. I didn't lie about needing space while keeping you as a backup plan." There was silence again, heavy and hot. Then Marianne's voice slithered back in, laced with disdain. "Do you hear yourself, Ethan? So cold. So heartless. After all we've done for you? After welcoming you into our family?" Ethan felt a dry laugh bubble up. "Which is exactly why I sent Lydia's belongings to your family home. It seemed appropriate. Hospitable, even. Don't worry. I didn't pack her emotional baggage. She'll have to unpack that herself." Marianne gasped audibly, like she'd been slapped. Lydia started crying again, messy, desperate sobs, the kind meant to tug at heartstrings. But Ethan felt nothing. Just an icy calm. "Good evening," he said finally, and ended the call. For a long moment he stared at his phone. His hands shook slightly, not from regret, but from the adrenaline of holding his ground. Then, slowly, he blocked the number. For the next week, the peace returned. Ethan went to work, hit the gym, spent evenings playing poker with Jordan, who had been his closest friend since college. Jordan knew most of what had happened, and though he tried not to meddle, he was quick to remind Ethan that he'd done the right thing. "She didn't want space, man," Jordan said one night as they sipped beers in Ethan's living room. "She wanted a safety net. That's what you were. You cut the rope, and now she's pissed because she's free-falling." Ethan smirked, lifting his bottle. "Here's to free-falling." For a while, it felt like things were finally stabilizing. But of course, Lydia and Marianne weren't finished. It was a Tuesday evening when Ethan came home from work, tired but content. The city was quiet, the air cool, the streetlights glowing faintly in the dusk. He turned the corner to his building, only to see 2 figures sitting on the front steps. His stomach dropped. Lydia, red-rimmed eyes, hair tied messily, wearing a jacket he didn't recognize. And below her, perched like some gargoyle of disapproval, was Marianne. Ethan froze on the sidewalk, just out of reach. For a second, he considered walking away, pretending not to see them. But Lydia spotted him first. She rose to her feet, her face lighting up with a mix of determination and desperation. "Ethan," she called softly, stepping down a few stairs. "We need to talk. Properly. Face to face." Ethan let out a slow breath and climbed the steps, but stopped a good 3 feet away. Evening, he said flatly. Unexpected visit. You can't hide behind phone calls, Lydia said quickly. You can't just block me and think it's over. We had 3 years together. We owe it to each other to talk this through. Ethan tilted his head. Talk through what? You lied. You cheated. I packed your things. Case closed. It wasn't cheating. Lydia's voice rose, her composure cracking. It was a mistake. Caleb means nothing. It was confusion. Loneliness. My mom thought. Stop blaming your mom, Ethan said sharply. She may have encouraged you, but you chose this. Own it. Lydia faltered, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Marianne stood now, folding her arms, eyes narrowing. You're being impossible, Ethan. Stubborn. Lydia has been telling people how difficult you've always been. Controlling. Harsh. How you threw her out like trash. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. Controlling? I respected her request for space. I paid to ship her belongings instead of dumping them. How is that controlling? You didn't talk to me, Lydia said quickly, tears welling in her eyes again. You just acted. Sending my things was aggressive, Ethan. And you changed the locks. I want my key back. I changed the locks the day after your things were delivered, Ethan replied calmly. For security. Your key won't work. Lydia's face crumpled. Marianne looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. You're unbelievable, Lydia whispered, her voice shaking. You didn't even keep my ceramic planter. You smashed it, didn't you? Out of spite. Ethan blinked. The giant lime green monstrosity. It's in box number 3, wrapped in 10 layers of bubble wrap. Because as hideous as it is, I respected that it mattered to you. Lydia's eyes darted away. Clearly, she hadn't unpacked all the boxes yet. Marianne bristled, ready to speak, but Ethan stepped closer, his voice low and cutting. This ends now, he said. Choices have consequences. You chose to lie, to cheat, to disrespect me. The consequence is that I don't want you anymore. And there is nothing you or your mother can do to change that. Lydia grabbed his arm suddenly, her nails digging in. Please, Ethan. Caleb's a loser. He lives with his parents. He has no future. It was madness, I swear. I want you. Only you. Ethan gently pried her hand off. Caleb's living situation doesn't matter to me. He's your problem, not mine. You made your bed, Lydia. Now lie in it. Marianne stepped forward, her voice icy. We have mutual friends, Ethan. It would be a shame if they heard how coldly you treated Lydia after a momentary lapse. You wouldn't want your reputation ruined, would you? Ethan's expression hardened. If you or Lydia try to smear me, I have a documented timeline. Screenshots of your vacation posts, courier receipts, signed delivery confirmations, photos of every packed box. And I've been recording our calls since your first performance. Do you really want to test me? Both women froze. Lydia's face went white. Marianne's jaw clenched. You wouldn't dare, Marianne whispered. Try me, Ethan said calmly. I'm not interested in drama, but I will protect myself. You created this mess. Now leave before I call security. He walked past them, unlocked the front door, and stepped inside. He didn't look back as he closed the door behind him, locking it with a satisfying click. His heart was pounding, but his mind felt strangely clear. They would keep trying, he knew. But with every interaction, it became more obvious. Lydia and Marianne were spiraling, and he had no intention of being dragged down with them. The following days unfolded like a storm Ethan had expected, but still dreaded. At first, it was quiet, too quiet. No calls, no surprise visits, no angry messages. For a moment, he almost believed they had finally understood that maybe Lydia and Marianne had accepted the reality of his refusal. But then, Jordan texted him one Friday evening. Bro, just a heads up. Lydia's been talking. Hannah overheard her at a cafe. She's telling people you were abusive. That you controlled her, isolated her from her friends, even that you threatened her when she left. Ethan sat back in his chair, the message glowing on his screen. A hollow laugh escaped him. So this was their play. If they couldn't guilt him into taking her back, they'd try to destroy his reputation. He called Jordan immediately. Abusive? That's the angle? That's what Hannah said, Jordan replied grimly. She didn't believe it, though. She told Lydia straight up that she's full of it. But you know how gossip works. Once it's out there, it sticks, Ethan finished, his voice low. He rubbed his temples, thinking. Jordan hesitated. Do you want me to talk to her? Shut this down. Ethan shook his head, though Jordan couldn't see it. No. Let it run. If I go on the defensive too early, it looks like I've got something to hide. But I'll be ready if it spreads. That night, Ethan sat at his desk and opened a file on his computer. He began to organize everything. Screenshots of Lydia's messages asking for space, the courier's signed delivery receipts, the photos of her belongings neatly packed, the time-stamped screenshots of Marianne's vacation posts with Lydia and Caleb cozied up in the background. He even downloaded copies of their recent phone calls, every venomous word, every desperate plea. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. By Sunday, the rumors reached work. A colleague, Sophia, pulled him aside after a meeting, her expression careful. Ethan, can I ask you something? She said softly. He nodded, bracing himself. Lydia's been saying some things. About you. I don't believe it, but others might. She says you locked her out of your apartment, refused to give her belongings back, and threatened to ruin her career. Ethan exhaled slowly. He could see the doubt flickering in Sophia's eyes, even though she was trying to be supportive. I appreciate you coming to me, he said evenly. None of that is true. In fact, I have documented proof of the exact opposite. She asked for space, lied about where she was, and I respectfully ended it. Her things were sent to her family home with insurance and a full inventory, signed for by her father. As for threats, he allowed himself a small, bitter smile. The only threats have come from her mother. Sophia studied him for a moment, then nodded. I figured. Just be careful. She sounds determined to play the victim. When Ethan got home that evening, there was an envelope waiting in his mailbox. His name was written in Lydia's handwriting. Inside was a 4-page letter, scrawled in messy ink, the words frantic, emotional, all over the place. It began with apologies, endless apologies. She admitted she'd made a mistake, that Caleb meant nothing, that she'd been under pressure from her mother. She wrote that she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, that she'd lost weight and cried herself to exhaustion every night. But halfway through, the tone shifted. She accused him of being cold, of abandoning her when she was at her lowest. She claimed that by sending her things back so quickly, he'd humiliated her, made her the laughingstock of her family and friends. And in the final page, her words grew sharp, almost threatening. If you won't forgive me, then I'll make sure everyone knows the kind of man you really are. You think you're calm, collected, untouchable? You're not. I know how to make people believe me. You'll regret doing this to me. Ethan set the letter down and leaned back in his chair. His chest was tight, but not with fear, more with a simmering anger. She wasn't just desperate anymore. She was dangerous. The next day, he called Hannah. Of all their mutual friends, she was the most level-headed, the least likely to be swayed by Lydia's theatrics. Hannah, he said after some small talk, I need to ask, have you heard the rumors Lydia's spreading? There was a pause, then Hannah sighed. Yes. And I told her to her face that I don't buy a word of it. Ethan, everyone who really knows you knows it's crap. But she's loud. And she's got her mom backing her up. People who don't know you well might believe it. I figured, Ethan murmured. Do you want me to set the record straight? Hannah asked. Not yet, Ethan said. But thank you. Just keep an eye on what she's saying. And if she crosses a line, I'll deal with it. That weekend, things escalated again. Ethan was at a coffee shop when he saw Caleb for the first time since the breakup. The man was sitting at a corner table, hunched over his phone, when he noticed Ethan. Caleb smirked, stood, and sauntered over. His posture was cocky, but his eyes had a hint of insecurity. Well, if it isn't the ex-boyfriend, Caleb drawled. Lydia told me you're still obsessed with her. Ethan looked up from his coffee calmly. If by obsessed you mean relieved to be rid of her, then sure. Caleb chuckled, but it sounded forced. You don't scare me, man. She told me you tried to ruin her. That you're toxic, controlling. Everyone knows it now. Ethan tilted his head, studying him. You really think she won't do the same to you when she's bored of you? Caleb faltered, just slightly, before covering it with another smirk. She loves me, not you. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Then I guess you're the one who has to deal with her. Good luck. For the first time, Caleb's expression wavered. He muttered something under his breath and walked out, shoulders tense. Ethan sat there, strangely calm. Let them talk. Let them spin their lies. He had the truth, and when the time came, he'd use it. That evening, as if to confirm his suspicions, Marianne called from a blocked number. Against his better judgment, Ethan answered. You think you're clever, don't you? She hissed the moment he picked up. You think you can humiliate my daughter and just walk away? You've ruined her reputation. She can't show her face without people whispering. And if you don't fix it, we'll make sure you're the one ruined. Marianne, Ethan said calmly, your daughter ruined her own reputation. She lied, she cheated, and now she's lying again to cover it up. I've said nothing. If people are whispering, it's because of what you and Lydia are doing. You're finished, Marianne spat. We'll see to it. Ethan hung up without another word. Then, without hesitation, he forwarded the letter Lydia had written to himself, time-stamped, scanned, and filed it in his growing folder of evidence. He wasn't going to strike first, but he was ready. And when Lydia and Marianne crossed the final line, he knew he would. The storm came 2 weeks later. Ethan had just finished a long day at work when his phone buzzed with a notification from Jordan. Bro, check Facebook. Now. A cold knot formed in Ethan's stomach as he opened the app. And there it was, Lydia's post, long and emotional, written to look like the confession of a broken woman. She painted herself as the victim, claimed she'd endured years of emotional abuse, subtle manipulation, and isolation. Said Ethan had cut her off from friends, controlled her every move, and then cruelly discarded her when she needed him most. The post ended with a photo of her tear-streaked face and the words, "No one deserves to be treated like this. If you're in a toxic relationship, please don't stay silent." Within an hour, the post had over 200 likes and dozens of comments, some sympathetic, some furious at the unnamed toxic ex. But Ethan knew the subtext was clear. People knew who she was talking about. Jordan called immediately. Man, this is bad. She's got people stirred up. Some of them are commenting like they know it's you. What's your move? Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, then exhaled slowly. My move? I let her dig her own grave a little deeper. Then I bury the lies with facts. And so he waited. He didn't respond, didn't post, didn't text. He let the comments pile up, let Marianne jump in with supportive replies about Lydia's strength, let Caleb chime in smugly about how real love heals wounds. By the third day, whispers had started reaching Ethan's workplace. A few colleagues avoided eye contact. Someone left an anonymous note on his desk. Abusers don't deserve second chances. That was the final straw. That night, Ethan sat at his computer and began to compile everything. He didn't write a post in anger. He wrote it with surgical precision. Screenshots of Lydia's texts asking for space. Screenshots of Marianne's vacation photos with Lydia and Caleb smiling together, time-stamped to the exact week Lydia claimed she'd been isolated. Screenshots of the inventory lists, the signed courier receipts, the delivery confirmation with her father's signature. A scanned copy of Lydia's handwritten letter, where she apologized, admitted Caleb meant nothing, and then threatened to make sure everyone knows the kind of man you really are if he didn't take her back. And finally, audio clips, short, clear, undeniable, of phone calls where both Lydia and Marianne contradicted their own lies. Lydia sobbing that she'd made a mistake. Marianne threatening to ruin his reputation. When it was all arranged neatly into a single post, Ethan added his message. I didn't want this to be public. I had hoped to move on quietly. But when lies begin to spread, I have no choice but to defend myself. Here is the truth. Every claim Lydia Hart and her mother have made is false. The proof speaks for itself. Then he hit post. The reaction was immediate. Within an hour, Lydia's post was flooded with new comments, people linking Ethan's evidence, questioning her story, pointing out the contradictions. Some who had defended her before deleted their comments. Others apologized to Ethan directly in private messages. Hannah messaged him first. That was brilliant. Surgical. She can't come back from this. Jordan sent a string of laughing emojis followed by, Bro, you just ended their entire campaign. Legendary. Even Sophia from work pulled him aside the next day, relief in her voice. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I knew something didn't add up. But seeing it laid out like that, it's clear now. You don't need to worry. Everyone's on your side. Meanwhile, Lydia's post disappeared. Marianne's profile went silent. Caleb blocked Ethan outright. But Ethan didn't care. The silence was enough. Days turned into weeks, and the storm finally passed. The rumors died, the whispers faded, and Ethan's life returned to its calm, steady rhythm. He hit the gym again, went out with friends, focused on his work. For the first time in months, he felt light, free of the constant weight of betrayal and drama. One evening, he found himself at the same cafe where Caleb had confronted him weeks before. This time, he was alone, sipping his coffee by the window. Across the street, he noticed Lydia walking with Marianne. They both looked smaller somehow, diminished. Lydia's face was pale, her posture hunched. Marianne's usual arrogance was gone, replaced by weary bitterness. For a brief moment, their eyes met through the glass. Lydia's gaze flickered with something, regret, anger, desperation. But Ethan only gave a small nod, a gesture of acknowledgement, nothing more. Then he turned back to his coffee. Because in that moment he understood. They no longer had any power over him. They had tried lies, guilt, threats, and smear campaigns. And in the end, all of it had crumbled under the weight of truth. When he walked out of the cafe that evening, the city lights bright around him, Ethan felt lighter than he had in years. The chapter was closed. And this time it would stay closed. And with that, our story comes to an end, but the real story begins with your thoughts. What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know in the comments.